Abundance, y'all. Abundance, upness, gratitude, every single high vibration that can come to mind. And today we're going to be talking about how it's very easy to get caught up in the physical and the importance of separating the physical from the spiritual. And when you begin to tap more into the spiritual aspects of things, this is where you have terrain. This is where you actually have power over your mind, is when you begin to focus on harnessing that, when you begin to understand that what you see in front of you a lot of the times is an illusion, right? And one of the greatest illusions that I think we as people forget about is like the illusion of separation, right? Nothing in the universe is actually separate. And if you're studying different branches of science, you'll learn that what you think is separation is really cohesiveness. Space is an illusion. When it comes to like land masses, right? We have a lot of people that are talking about land masses and who was where first. But the thing is like each and every landmass that we're talking about is connected. The water is what brings the land together. It's not something that separates it. You see what I'm saying? That's the illusion that I want a lot of us to break. So it's not about approaching from a place of fixing problems, but harnessing the mind and fixing, your thoughts on higher vibrations above what you're seeing. Because again, the physical is only one dimension, that you don't just exist there, you exist multidimensionally. So welcome in, y'all. I'm just getting started. It's been a grip. I haven't been on here in a minute. And I've been telling y'all for a minute, we're going to tap into manifestation, meditation, and learning more about the brain, because that's why we are in the state that we're in today, is because we don't understand our brains. We're operating our bodies 100% of the time without understanding it, right? We're having children not understanding their anatomy, right? So this is the reason why we still rely on doctors and hospitals and clinics and things like that, even though medicine is growing all around us. So I think that as a people, if we begin to fix our thinking, it's going to serve to be a better, a better outcome for us in the long run. So I'm sitting here, I've got 23 pages of notes on the brain, meditation, and manifestation. And it doesn't just stop there, right? So let's talk about stress and fear. This system forces you to live in the survival mode, or it forces the amygdala or the cerebellum, the back lower portions of the brain. These are not negative portions of the brain. It's just that you've been reduced and programmed into using negativity to drive you behind the things that you're doing. So living in stress is living in survival mode. And when the body becomes stressed, stress hormones take over. And the sympathetic nervous system begins to turn on. And when our bodies begin to sense danger, physiologically, our pupils begin to dilate so that we can see better. Our heart and our respiratory systems begin to increase so that way we can run or fight or hide or wherever we need to do. More glucose is released into the bloodstream to make more energy available to our cells, the way that our blood flows from the internal organs to move a lot quicker. So I think, honestly, when we begin to understand what's taking place with our bodies, we can be in more control. When we begin to sense danger, when we begin to sense fear, when we begin to sense these things, this is where we can begin to migrate our thoughts and change the way that we feel on the inside, which affects the way that we interact with our reality. All right. So when it comes to the immune system, it dials up and down. Cortisol floods the muscles, right? And circulation begins to move away from like rational thinking from the forebrain. And this forces you into that hindbrain thinking that I was talking about, that cerebellum, that amygdala portions of the brain. So this is something that I don't think it's talked about enough. Like, we mention anxiety to each other, but I don't think we understand the mechanism of anxiety or what's actually taking place within our bodies. And ultimately, stress begins to dissipate the moment that you tell the body that you are not stressed, that you're not in fear, that you're not in danger, and remembering that you're not the body. That's the first thing, right? Is knowing that physically is only one portion of who you are, right? So if you begin to fix the way that you think and the way that you approach situations, it is going to give us as a community a better outlook. We're not really focused on overcoming fear. We're just finding ways to be more comfortable in fear. We're finding ways to be more comfortable in this system instead of doing away with it, right? If you think of everything that we've tried to do, marching, Selma marches, peaceful protests, Black Lives Matter, every single movement has still led us to where we are today, because we think that our freedom is going to come from the same thing that's oppressing us. But again, if we fixate our thoughts above this system and understand that this was meant and rigged for our oppression, then we beat the game, right? I remember when the elders a lot used to say that, where these people are working with a 400-year head start. They had a 400-year head start and things of the sort. If you understand that if they're working with a 400-year head start, then that means that this system that we're participating in collectively is rigged, right? And rigged systems have fixed outcomes. So when people ask, why are we like this as a people? We have led ourselves here, right? We have chosen and made choices that have led us here. I'm not saying that it's all our fault, right? But if we switch our thinking, if we become more empowered of our thinking and not fall into these impulses, fall for fear, fall for the tactics of this world, programming, you see what I'm saying? TV, telling lies to your vision, and how it programs the mind and pushes it into these small boxes. And this is what creates limitations. And these limitations, fear, anxiety, all these different low vibrations affect the brain, and they cause sulcuses, which is basically like the brain is supposed to be as coherent as like the liver or the heart is. It's not supposed to have lots of spaces between those ridges, like how they show you in the pictures. It's supposed to be a lot more cohesive. And when gray matter begins to increase in the brain and these ridges become more spaced out from each other, this is what causes literal double-mindedness. This is what causes fear for you to act more out of fear. This is what causes us to become desensitized to the things, the atrocities, the things that are happening in the world. So I'm telling you, the number one thing that we have to do is lock in with our minds and sharpen them, right? All these things about coming together, we have to lock in with our minds first, because if you think of every person that you value in life right now, right? You didn't force that relationship. These people came into your life. You cross paths with these people. You cross paths with good opportunities, right? You align your energy with these things. So that's why it's extremely important for us to understand, our thoughts. And when we think things, that quantum entanglement, how we're directly affecting each other, right? Your thoughts don't just affect you, they affect the entire universe, everything that is living, right? This is what the law of oneness is explaining, how your thoughts don't just affect you, that there's a particle at this end of the universe that's also affecting other atoms at the opposite end of the at the opposite end of the universe. So everything is literally happening simultaneously, number one. And it's also a direct effect on, we're having a direct effect on each other. So we got to start paying a lot more attention to that. I'm not sure why the hell I'm getting flagged so much. I'm not even talking about nothing. But Let me see. I see somebody wanted to come up. I seen somebody in the request. If you're in the request and you wanted to come up, feel free. I just know it's a little issue with us seeing the screen, so that's why I had it like this. But yeah, for those that are just coming in, we're talking about the brain and meditation and manifestation. I'm taking a break from talking about the species and stuff because I've been telling y'all that I was gonna lock in with a topic like this. So if you do have any, yeah, next page, for sure. Gratitude to you. Yeah, you're saying everything that needs to be saying. Facts. Gratitude for that. Do this. But yeah, we started out talking about stress and how they force us into stress each and every day. When you go to work, on at 9 a.m., off at 5 p.m., like light switches. You see what I'm saying? They want to harness your energy because the energy is what is the battery and what fuels this system, right? So it's not money that we need. It's not Black-owned businesses that we need. What we need to understand is that we're the battery behind this system. They do not move. They cannot do anything unless we as a people collectively agree to do so. We're collectively agreeing to work, so work will continue to oppress us. We're collectively choosing indoctrination, so y'all get up and take your children to school. And this is why things are playing out in our community the way that it is, because we don't understand that if you're not in charge of your energy, someone else is, right? A government is meant to govern your mental. That's what it's for. So we have to remember, before we decided to subscribe to this system, all the other systems and monarchy, anarchy, patriarchy, all these other systems that we subscribe to, because it hasn't just been this one. Again, it's a fall. It's a series of steps that have led us to where we are today. And for us to get out of that, you got to climb in higher vibrations. You got to lock in with that mind and sharpen it. It's got to be like steel sharpening steel, with the people that you keep around you, your immediate circle, the way that they think, the way, you know what I'm saying? And if these people's thoughts in your immediate circle are not aligned with your growth and your ascension, you need keep tapping in with yourself and keep doing the inner work, because that gap, that spiritual gap, is just going to get wider and wider and wider and wider. A lot of the times you don't have to forcibly remove yourself from people, because I know sometimes in certain situations you can't, right? But if you're in a situation where you can't get away from certain people or you can't break away, keep aligning your thoughts and your energy for where you want to be. And right now, things are manifesting a lot faster on the planet because of Earth's resonance. You see what I'm saying? Earth's frequency herself. We're not in the same speed, vibing at the same speed we were 6 years ago, 6 months ago, according to the Schumann resonance. You see what I'm saying? A lot of these, the tools that they use to measure what's happening on a solar level, or what's happening with the sun or with the stars, or what's happening, on a interstellar level, is breaking down. They can't even tell us. You see what I'm saying? And the sun and the earth is directly affecting our genetics. It directly affects how we perceive reality, and how different atoms and particles that make up the universe, how they affect and boost our DNA or DEA, or boost our genetics. So it really is about coming in universe and being unified with yourself, so that way you can assert yourself as needed. Focus more on your own growth and ascension, and sharpening your own mind, and I promise you, all things will be added, and it will align with that. I remember when I first started out with trying to lock in with meditation. It's hard when you're eating meat. If you still eat meat and a lot of heavily processed foods, it's really fucking hard to try to lock in with something like meditation, because as adults, you have about 1,000 to 2,000 parasites that are in the body, laying eggs, reproducing, and influencing the way that you think, influencing the way that you act. It's not just epigenetics. It's not just your genetics and epigenetics. It's also the things that you consume, the media, the water. You see what I'm saying? That's the reason why none of us live by clean water, right? So when it's like I hear people are making fun of, they don't even have clean water over there. You think the water that's coming out of your sink is clean? Take a day or two if you need. Study aquamation. You probably won't want to bathe no more. You probably not going to want to wash your hands. If you drinking out of water fountains, stop. Like, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Do not drink tap water, you know? But these parasites and also antigens that coat the red blood cells, these things affect the way we perceive the world. It will cause brain fog. It will cause inflammation. It will cause high cortisol levels we were just talking about. Yeah. F1, y'all. I'm getting flagged for some reason. It will cause, things in the body that you don't want, that don't feel good. You know what I'm saying? It used to be hard for me to really sit down in one spot and think about one thing at a time because I was struggling with things like anxiety, brain fog, depression, and things like that. When I changed my diet, when I started connecting more with the earth, when I started being in the sun more, that's when my life changed. Literally. I mean, you can think of every self-help book. I think some people are trying to recommend therapy to me at one point. Like, what ultimately helped me lock in was nature, the best nervous system regulator that I know of. Because right under Earth's, like when you go outside and you're walking on grass, right below that is Earth's nervous system. Her roots, and the roots are connected, and trees communicate through what's known as the mycelium network. And the mycelium network is like mushrooms, like don't use photosynthesis. They don't need sunlight to grow. They're not plants, right? They create what is known as the mycelium network, and trees communicate through that. Essentially, trees and mushroom or trees and fungi have a symbiotic relationship. And each of these trees that are in forests, they are, you have something known as mother trees. And these mother trees directly pass genetic material to the daughter trees. Every single tree in a forest is the same. Every single tree in a forest is one body, right? Then you have synthetic sciences like forestry. And they also use synthetic biology for a lot of their things. And what these people do is they claim to be saving Earth, and they create these fake trees and ectowombs. And then they go plant these man-made or these synthetic trees in nature. And this is what causes, communicative issues, even in forests between trees, right? So this is where you get like Douglas fir over like a natural fir tree, right? Or you get these different names, like how they're manipulating the names with a lot of these plants and stuff like that. That's why I say it pays to really understand the properties of whatever the herb is or whatever the tree is, and understanding what's naturally expanding through biogenesis and what's here through spontaneous generation. Like, what was created and then what is earth creating, right? Because when it comes to spirituality and knowing thyself, that's how sharp I want to be, right? I want to know what is supposed to be a part of Earth's womb and supposed to naturally expand with it, and what's not, right? When it comes to things like key limes are alkaline in nature, but they're hybridized, right? A key lime, yes, is alkaline. Dr. Sebi did not lie, but it is a hybridized fruit, right? Mongolian limes are natural, but a Persian lime is not. Nature doesn't know what grapefruits are. She only knows pomelos, which is the parent fruit to the grapefruit. So I take a different route with science. You see what I'm saying? I go as far as, introgression. Y'all hear me talk about hybridization and stuff like that, because if I come directly from the earth, I need to be eating directly from her bosom. I'm telling y'all, earth don't know what the fuck a chicken is. You know what I'm saying? These cows, and stuff like that, these animals that y'all are eating are influencing your thoughts. They do carry an energetic signature. It's very, very low, like 20 hertz or less, right? So I'm always interested to hear how people say like, oh, the diet don't matter when it comes to spirituality. I'm like, I don't know how it don't, because I was not able to lock in at all if it wasn't for that. If it wasn't for me locking in with nature and, feeding my vessel the way it's supposed to be fed. When I was still dabbling in sugar, I might have gave up like meat, but I was still stuck on like cheese, bread, ranch, and stuff like that. That stuff was still, it was helping me, like, because I had got rid of meat, I was able to see more, but I still struggle with grasping information, sitting with my thoughts, being able to focus and channel my energy. So that's why I think, having a discussion about not really focusing on problems, but fixing the way that you approach problems is best. I was like, this shit has to change. I wasn't really happy with the outcome of life. So I had to change my approach, change the way that I thought about things. But when it comes to things like stress, y'all, in truth, it doesn't matter the organism. No organism can truly endure living in an emergency mode 24/7 for extended amounts of time. Like, our senses record like incoming information from the environment. You see what I'm saying? Our neurons begin to organize into these networks. So the more that you accept fear, the more the brain accepts it. The more your reality accepts it, the more they control you. This is why it's called a government. Like I said, it's governing your mental. It's controlling the way that you think, your flow of thoughts, what you do, what you believe in. I don't get caught up in beliefs. I want to know. I want to know thyself. I want to use knowledge to help me gain consciousness. I don't even want to stay in the vibration of having knowledge. I want to be in the vibration of being conscious 24/7, being aware 24/7, being more in an observatory mode than an absorption mode, right? To absorb things and be like, or to observe things and be like, that's not really for me. And that's it. I don't have to sit there. I don't have to harp on it. I don't have to spend 2 weeks and deciding that's not for me. That don't align with the universe. I'm not over there. Done. Right? That's where I encourage our people to be. If it doesn't come from earth, why is we giving our energy to it? If it don't align with universal law, why are we talking about it? Like these things, like, do you believe, what is the universe saying? That's how I know some of us, and a lot of us, are getting caught up like in, beliefs and, well, my opinion, I'm gonna come clean. In some cases, I don't care. I don't care. I'm gonna ask you, have you studied universal law and what's been happening on this planet for millions and billions of years? That's what I'm gonna ask you. When y'all ask me, what do you think? I'm be like, what did the universe say? Then they be getting mad. I'll be like, see? Let me see. Who is this one that want to come up? I don't know. I think y'all might be tapping that on purpose or like on accident or something. But if you do want to come up, let me know. It's a live restriction because I'm talking about the brain and stuff like that and stress hormones in the body. So if you want more brothers and sisters to hear this, tap and share or repost, however you see fit. But we're talking about the brain. We're talking about meditation and manifestation and the thoughts that you have. I hear a lot of people say like the thoughts that you have is what will manifest. It's more so of the thoughts that you hold in the subconscious, right? If you still like hold a deep belief that there's some things that you'll never be able to do, that's what's going to manifest, right? That's why I say you have to take small, incremental, intentional, like you got to be intentional, even if it's small, to make those small impressions on the subconscious to really help shift, because manifestation is instant. It's not something that takes 2 years and shit. It's instant, but it's about the energy that you continue to hold. It's about what you continue to exert, right? I had to literally switch the energy that I mainly held towards my people, the energy that I held towards bugs, ants, bees, trees, grass. That comes from learning, right? Learning about grass will make you want to touch it more. Learning about the sun will make you want to be in it more, especially when you know how it's actually upgrading your cells. I think it's 20 minutes of just being in the sun gets rid of like it's either 2,000 or 20,000 microbes at once. That sun is emitting a germ unaliving, detoxifying, gene mutating wavelength. So it's meant to power us up, but you got to be in it. The sun is a recorder of everything that's been taking place. And I can't remember if it's the Latin or the Greek translation on something pertaining to the womb that translates to camera. And when you actually study this portion of the womb, it acts and mimics and does the same thing that the sun does, right? The more I actually learn about this planet and the cosmos, it's really hard for me to separate masculinity from femininity. I see it literally all in it's all one and the same. You know what I mean? I don't like to say that the sun is masculine. Not anymore. I used to, but then I studied the sun. I studied stars. I studied multistellar systems. I studied binary systems. I studied tertiary systems. And I'm like, a lot of the things that they're teaching children in schools about solar systems is like, they teaching you like 5 to 10%. You know what I'm saying? Our stars have different luminosities, different brightness levels, right? White dwarfs, but are different from the star that's, shining right now. So you got to understand what's taking place around you is also taking place within you in these different dimensions. What's happening to you on a cellular level is also happening somewhere else in the universe, right? The way your cells migrate is the way that stars communicate, right? The way that stars are formed is also very similar to how they unalive, so-called, or how they transfer their energy. That's the same thing that we see in so-called unaliving, how energy just passes on, how we just transcend. So somebody says it depends on context. Come up. What are you talking about? I've been saying a lot. Feel free to request up. Let me know if there's something that I can break down for you. You can stop me and let me know. I don't mind it being, conversative, but just so we can understand each other more. Welcome in, Nat Turner. Welcome in, y'all. Gratitude and abundance. So yeah, let's see. What else should we talk about? We talked about the parasites and how they affect the brain. So I guess we can talk about neurotransmitters. And I know y'all hear me talk about synaptic plasticity, neurogenesis, and creating new neural pathways in the brain, which is what this live is about. Being able to not fixate on what you see in front of you, but to think about the end goal, to think about the light that's actually at the end of the tunnel, to tap into those higher vibrations. It starts with things like neurogenesis and opening new neural pathways. When two neurons meet, a synapse exists. And when electricity travels along what is known as the axon, the neuron must convert a chemical into a signal. And that signal is what bridges the gap. That's what's known as synaptic plasticity, right? So these are the neurotransmitters, right? And y'all have heard things like adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, oxytocin, GABA, glutamate, serotonin, cortisol. You see what I'm saying? Cortisol is a hormone, but these neurotransmitters, like the one we've been talking about with fear, like adrenaline, these are released by the adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands, they sit on top of the kidneys. This is what increases the flow of blood to muscles and things like that. So how energy is actually communicated and transported through the body is done through the blood. And when it comes to the central nervous system, these neurotransmitters is what send these chemical emotions throughout the body. And these chemical emotions that are produced by your thoughts is what exactly creates your reality. If anybody has read Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about this before the book even gets started. He already goes into several different studies that they've done using like heart rate visibility machines where they can actually measure the heart's intention or the intensity of the heart, the emotion that's being exerted. They have tools that they can measure for that, right? So manifestation is something that's very real. We can actually see what happens and the effects of meditation on the brain, and just by taking control of your life, taking control of your thoughts, and being in control of the flow, is we can see that through science, right? Through thousands of brain scans. So these neurotransmitters are also important to understand, because when you begin to tap into fear, you can kind of feel like, okay, I can feel my palms are getting a little sweaty. That's a signal. That's letting you know about something in your surrounding, about something about the energy that you hold, right? It's giving you that chance to fix. It's giving you that chance to saying, okay, there's an alert. What are we going to do about it, right? So those are the things that I think we should be teaching children about their anatomy and about their brain. We first need to understand we're not the body. So these things that are happening in the body can be controlled remotely. And that's done on a metaphysical level. So, most people are familiar with things like oxytocin or like dopamine. Dopamine is like, you ever seen people that like love playing games, like video games and stuff like that? A lot of the times people that, it's not that they're addicted to video games, they're addicted to the addictive reward that the brain craves, right? And this neurotransmitter motivates you to seek out things that you need for survival and things like that as well. Oxytocin is known as like the love or the cuddle hormone, and this is released whenever you're close to another person. We can see the similar remnants of like these chemicals that are released even between those mother and daughter trees and forests, right? You actually communicate with other people, other organisms, and the entire universe 100,000% with telepathy. Before you actually speak something, the thoughts that you have and how they migrate are influencing the people around you before you say it out of your mouth, because that's how fast the brain is. That's how fast light moves. So that's also another thing. Let's see. Mastering the brain anatomy, functionality, communication is critical in spiritual journey. Facts. You see what I'm saying? Mastering the brain, which is understanding your anatomy, understanding the physiology or the functionality, like the brother said. Communication and how the body actually communicates is key for spirituality, because this is now getting into the things beyond what you're seeing, which is physical. Now you're controlling your physical reality. Like, nope, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this instead. Now we're creating a different reality just like that. It's instant. And I know that it's a lot easier said than done, but meditation, manifestation becomes a lot easier when you practice, when you exert that energy, when you hold, if you just sit in your room or wherever you can kind of channel or focus your thoughts. If you sit there for like just 17 seconds and hold a thought, just for 17 seconds, practice that. Okay. And then now you can kind of understand what it means to focus, right? But then if you take the intention, when you become passionate, when you can tap into gratitude, I can promise you manifestation is going to be easier. You want to try to manifest the things that you want in life after you've already tapped into things like gratitude. I like to thank the universe for ants, aphids, bees. I'll go outside in the backyard and just look at the grass and instantly become grateful for that because you know what I'm saying? How am I going to eat? How are the butterflies going to get what they need? How am I going to continue to expand consciousness and be conscious with these other beings if it's not for these things, if it's not for the mother giving us these things and for us tapping in and wanting to actually understand her womb? It's a lot of people that just want to say, we was on this landmass first, but so we're ants, so we're beetles, so it's grass, so it's trees, right? And I actually just loaded just like a 8-minute video on YouTube talking about this, right? And I was saying how I remember when our brothers and sisters first went live about the FBA and the American Indian and the Tartarians and the Tamaris and the Solanis and the everything, right? And it took us a while for us to see our first live or our first piece of content pushing unity. You know what I'm saying? A lot of our people is still in that vibration. They stuck there. They're like, nah, we the American Indians. Fuck y'all. Like, I don't want to hear that shit from us. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't be talking to each other like that, especially when a lot of what we saying is ruled by our emotions that we are not trying to master and control. You want to say that that brother isn't over there, but you can't even articulate it without using your emotions. You see what I'm saying? So when it comes to the talking points about unity, are we just talking about unity because there's just an overwhelmingly amount of division? Or are we talking about unity because we actually want to unify with the universe? Because we understand we're not separate from the universe, that we are quantumly entangled. Is it because of that reason, right? Because if it is, you got to remove the title about being American Indian and shit, because those titles were only created to literally keep us from seeing the truth about each other. Period. We are all the same people due to our embryology. One of the first things that forms in embryogenesis to gestation is the brain, right? You have two cells, you have one single cell that splits through binary fission into what's known as cleavage. That cleavage then progresses into the splitting of two cells known as the daughter cell. Those daughter cells turn into 4 cells. The 4 cells turn into 8. 8 keeps going up to 18, or is it 16, which is where the morula forms. The first thing that forms is your brain. That's got to count for something. You see what I'm saying? Your body is built around that. So you got to lock in with that part of you too, right? FBA, pretendians, Pan-African, and yeah, facts. All distractions. Our people are hanging on to old ideas that already failed. That's a fire comment right there. That's actually one of the best comments I've seen in a minute. But yeah, all these different titles and stuff has nothing to do with our genetics and our biology. So when I tell our people, I'm like, we all the same due to our embryological origin. They're like, oh, no, we're not the same. To our embryological origin. Oh, no, we're not the same. Because of our embryological origin. See, they don't know what that is. They just hear same. They just hearing same. That's the only word they know. I'm taking it. I'm running with it. We ain't the same. But that's why I say science. I ask our people all the time, what are the genetic and the biological differences between these people, these pretendians, these Indians, what makes a black person black? See, if I start asking y'all like that, that's going to force y'all to start talking about and start knowing things like biochemical composition. What makes black people black? Right? And that's a book that's actually posted on my page. It's like 60 pages written by Dr. Layla Africa, And what makes us all the same is neuromelanin, the literal biochemical substance that coats each and every last one of our cells, which is what separates us from these other people. These other people have things like vitro-synthetic neuromelanin, vitro-synthetic pheomelanin, and eumelanin. They don't even have the same eumelanin and pheomelanin as these animals, right? It's the synthetic versions, the synthetic remnants of what these animals are composed of. And a lot of these animals that are man-made, like cats and dogs that they share DNA with, again, these are biologically created organisms, lab created organisms that have introgress genes. You know, a dog is not 100% a dog. A cat is not 100% a cat. Neanderthals are not 100% Neanderthals. These organisms have introgress genes, genetic material that comes from more than one place, right? So this is why we as a people can't try to migrate our thoughts the same as them, because their way of thinking, their all of the everything that makes them who they are, their genetics, their genome is coming from multiple origins that don't even align with Earth. That's why they express their genes to do poisonous things, to be destructive, right? And once I started to understand their genetics, I really got them out the way. Like when it comes to these other people, it's like, okay, you're just doing what's within your genetics, right? Once we understand that these people aren't us, we're left with to only talk about each other and our unity and where we're headed as a people, right? A lot of our people want to talk more about these people DNA than our own. We want to talk about, oh yeah, they dogs and they got dog DNA and they this and they that and monkeys and all. We're stars. Oh, I don't do outer space. You don't do outer space? What you mean you don't do outer space? You know what I'm saying? Once we start breaking down the science behind who we are, relating it to how we are living dark matter energy, how we are living black body radiators, how we are the universe walking the flesh. You're like, I don't know about that. I just want my reparations. I just keep wearing my Jordans and my chains. I'm like, cut his mic, man. Cut his mic. We can't be like that. And we got to stop passing that lame ass shit to our children, man. A 60-year-old man, so I'm going to keep wearing my Jordans. I'm going to keep wearing my chain. Look, y'all, they saying that Nike not even selling like that no more. And you saying that. They saying they sales have plummeted. Every cat's out of the bag on these celebrities. These, we already know that these games is rigged. These football, these basketball games. It was not meant to last for an eternity, y'all. This is a glimpse, a speck of our eternal ascension. That's the thing. If you're an eternal being, we can't be too fucked up about where we're at. You got to remember, you are ancient and eternal, all in the same breath. You know what I'm saying? So when you transcend this energy, you're going to go to the next dimension. You know, we're not going to come back to this shit. You know what I'm saying? This is just here. This is only happening here, right? So I want us to understand that harnessing our mind, harnessing that energy, understanding the way sound affects the body. You know what I'm saying? Becoming more, just detailed about you, what you perceive, everything around you. That's consciousness. That's awareness. Y'all remember the movie? Have y'all ever seen the movie Lucy? And what's the lady that plays Black Widow? She's the main character. And basically, the more that her DNA began to get unlocked, she got to the point where she called her mom. I think this was at like, they said 50 or 60% of her brain being unlocked. And she calls her mom. She says, I remember being in your womb and feeling what that was like. I feel like I know everything. I remember feeling the blood flow from you into my body. Like, this is what we're going to. When they say that we know everything and that we hold all information, that's what they were trying to show us in a lot of these movies, like that one. The amount of the ghost DNA that they're talking about is unlocked in the sun. It's not ghost. It's dormant. You know what I'm saying? You haven't used it in a minute. It's a muscle that just hasn't been used. That's why it's important to feed your genetics, exercise the brain. How do you do that? Reading, meditating, the things that you are struggling with, like going to the next level and sitting there and facing it, right? New habits, a new attitude towards life, switching your thoughts, being more in control. The moment you think of negativity, switch it. Every negative thought, think of 3 positive ones, right? That's how you create neurogenesis, right? So that's important. Yeah, Scarlett, yeah, facts. That's her name. But yeah, she was sitting there talking about like, I can actually feel and sense everything at a deeper level. That's where we're going. That's actually how a lot of our women feel. I see that the women, like the sisters are talking, we're becoming a lot more intuitive. I feel a lot more, I can sense at just a higher perception than I did 3 years ago or even last year, right? So these things, paying attention to the changes, the subtle changes that are happening with our DNA and in our body is key as well. Now, we've talked about like neurotransmitters, and when 2 neurons meet, a synapse exists and electricity travels along the axon, converts it into a chemical, and this is what produces, emotions in the body. But when it comes to like hormones, right, you've got cortisol, you've got oxytocin, neuronephrine, epinephrine, insulin, progesterone, testosterone, I already said estrogen, other androgens that are in the body, melatonin, prolactin. And I actually want to talk about prolactin for a second, because when we were talking about things like telepathy and how everything that we think of first gets sent miles outside of our body, and it can affect another brother over there, another sister over there. It doesn't matter, right? We're just not aware that it's affecting us. But this is the reason why waves of sadness can just creep in, right? This is the reason why you just get mad as fuck out of nowhere, right? It depends on what you're eating, what you consume, but also because of the subconscious thoughts that we each hold as an individual. So this is why I say we got to start speaking and thinking highly of our people. So that way, or starting with yourself too, so it can permeate throughout when you see your people, that you know what I'm saying, that you begin to switch the way that you view your brothers and sisters. That change has to start initially with you. But when it comes to things like prolactin, like when women are pregnant, she can actually increase the prolactin levels that are found in men. So men have like small amounts of prolactin, which is basically it's created in the pituitary gland, but it initiates and maintains like milk production in breasts. And this hormone is not present. It's not like it's absent from men. It's just in very, 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 very small amounts. And when she begins to get pregnant, these prolactin levels will signal to the other half to increase certain hormones within him to better prepare him for the child. We actually don't need to talk. Our neurotransmitters, our hormones do all the talking for us. That's what telepathy is all about. We prepare our the men to be the father that he needs to be, right? When it comes to the ovum that selects the sperm, right? She ultimately selects and pulls in, ultimately. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? Thyroid also controls like the metabolism. It influences growth, the nervous system and development and things like that. But all of these different hormones, all of these different messages that we're sending in our bodies permeate out to the next body. Your ascension or lack thereof will affect the people around you. That's why, lock in with yourself before you try to come in unison with other people, because you can either sink them or help them swim, right? Let's see. Yeah, those brain scans that I were telling y'all about, those were done in 2013. When it was talking about like when they first started learning about the nervous system and what regulates it, there were several brain scans that were done back then that showed like a substantial increase in like the levels of the levels of electricity in like students that meditated, students that actually began to harness their minds, take more control of the energy, the flow of their thoughts. Those things can be measured just by brain activity. So we can see that there are certain portions of the brain that are a lot more active, more online when you're at peace And then these same portions of the brain can become reduced while in fear. So you're ultimately in control of how things manifest as well. But let's see, to influence these centers, right? You have to learn how to change your brain waves. So you have beta waves and you have alpha waves. This is a formula that I actually use every single day that I came up with based on my research. And it's basically beta waves and think in the thinking brain, like constantly observing the outer world, plus alpha waves or placing more intention on the inner world is what actually slows down the nervous system. So basically, brain and heart coherence with positive intention is what creates a regulated nervous system. When you begin to observe the reality, right? Not absorbing, but observe, okay, I can see that this may be posing as a challenge to me. I can see that my body is sensing this as a dangerous situation. But if I place more, the moment I begin to look within, like how I'm sitting here talking to myself, guess what's happening? Regulation of the nervous system simultaneously. It's instant. The more you begin to focus on, okay, let me slow down for a second, it slows down. The moment you begin to say, we're not going to think about negativity, boom, positivity. It's not hard. It's actually not hard. It just takes exertion. It takes practice when you've been mentally programmed and sold a program that's causing you to be anxious. It just takes practice. But even things like gene expression is changeable once you begin to think and act and feel different. You begin to influence, the way that the genes actually, how they transport information throughout the body, right? So we can also talk about the different parts of the brain. I'm going to skip and I want to talk about sound, right? Because I know everybody that's in here, you're listening. So I want to talk about sound. When the brain hears sound, like when it comes to negative and positive vibrations, right? Sound is first perceived by the auditory cortex. This is found in the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe, y'all hear me talk about it a lot, is what receives sound, but the centrally most located point of sound perception is that cortex. And this permeates throughout the rest of the temporal lobe and hits other parts of the brain. And this is the reason why sound affects the entire body, because it infects the entire brain. So I do recommend, frequencies, listening to natural frequencies like birds chirping. I'm in a state where bats live next to me. So hearing the frequency of bats is another thing. I also advise y'all to study bats, study where these different sayings like bat shit crazy and blind as a bat. I want y'all to learn where a lot of these sayings are coming from, because bats are not like that. You know what I'm saying? These people were experimenting in basements on bats. And then that's where a lot of these, it's the same thing with us. I don't say things like, that damn, that shit costs an arm and a leg. I don't say things like that anymore. A lot of these sayings are rooted in something dark, and they've been, again, programming you to think more negatively about things that are actually truly positive. You see what I'm saying? Bats are the only animal on this planet that doesn't use the same, like how birds, bees, like how they are connected to the electromagnetic grid. Bats are using something beyond that. I can't think of what it's called right now. It starts with the S, but they're tapped in a whole nother part of the electromagnetic grid. And some parts of their anatomy is also aligned with owls, things like that. So I just encourage y'all, study different things, study different animals, different plants, different insects, because it will give you more insight on who you are. But when it comes to like the frequency that you hear, these birds, bats, even like bees buzzing by you and things like that, they're holding a frequency that can affect yours positively, right? When it comes to sound. But different hertz, like I like 888 frequency a lot. That's like an abundance frequency. My cells respond positively to those, or like 528 hertz. Even like 432 hertz is the frequency that Earth actually creates life at. So 111 is another good one. And these are also different resonances and frequencies that Earth has vibed at before. We're not at 111 anymore. We're not at what's the other one? We used to be vibing as low as 7 hertz, as low as 40 hertz. And right when we got up to 111 hertz, that's when the Schumann resonance and all these different tools started really malfunctioning. And they also started lying about the information that they put out. So that was, some people like to argue that was the last, what's the word? Like the last, like the most accurate, that's the word I'm looking for, like the most accurate reading, because that's the so-called last time it was reported, but that's not true. We can see it on the Schumann resonance right now. Some days it's just flat out white. And then when we started noticing these bright flashes of light, somebody decided to zoom in and seen cymatic like patterns, like sacred geometry being emitted through the resonance and through her vibration. So I just wanted to tap in with y'all. I didn't want much. I probably will come back live today. We'll talk about genetics. I just wanted to talk about the brain and meditation. And just to wrap up everything that we talked about, when you sharpen your mind, you sharpen your energy. When you begin to question things and you question from a place of curiosity, like, you know what I'm saying, from a place of awareness and observing, that can really help you get to the next level of your ascension, because what you're doing is you're forcing your brain, you're forcing your body to look deeper into and past the physical realm that you see. It forces you to pay attention into the things that are metaphysical, the things that we don't see. That's where you are consciously. You see yourself physically, but behind that physical body is the spirit body, which is where you ultimately control everything. So you're saying what time? I say in about 2 hours, Nat, because me and Zell are going to go live about genetics, probably. So I'll probably do that. I wanted to talk to y'all about the brain from my perspective, but I still want to do a live about the divine feminine and masculine. And I want to do like an entire live just about the brain and the differences between the masculine and the feminine brain from like ages 0 to like 80. That's going to take us some time. So that's pretty much it, y'all. And I think that's going to really help us, because when we start talking about the growth and development of our children and actually understanding their brains and their anatomy and things like that, that's what's going to help us and help teach our children that they're not the body, that they can control these things, but they're not limited to them. Right. So anything else? I said I answered the time. Mastering the brain. Let's see, the male and female perspectives. You're right. It's the same. Facts. See what I'm saying? Facts. So if nothing else for now, feel free to reach out to me. How did you feel about this? Like, I know I was kind of all over the place. I haven't done a live in a long time where it was just me, especially like about meditation and stuff. But I just wanted to put it out there because we can really change the dynamic, you know what I'm saying, single-handedly if we just really lock in with our minds. Seriously, you don't want to be a liability to other brothers and sisters with your thinking. All right. So if nothing else, y'all, abundance, gratitude. I'll be back in about 2 hours.